Good morning. For some reason, my connection through my phone to my camera isn't working right, and so for some reason I had to walk up there and turn it off and on, so I'm going to have to do that when I end it also. I was reading an interesting story this morning in my personal devotions. It's actually an old fairy tale, but it has a good illustration to it. It's about this witch fairy tale, okay? About this witch who used to take travelers in as they'd travel along the way, and they'd ask for lodging, and she would put them in this bed that was a very comfortable bed, and the thing was, if they stayed in the bed past daylight, they would turn to stone. And she would then set them out in her garden, and they would be a part of her garden. But the deal was that she had this bed so very, very comfortable that everybody always just had this great night's sleep, and they would never get up in time before daylight came, and they would turn to stone. Well, she had this little servant girl that was working with her, and this very handsome young man came to the cottage asking for a night's sleep, and she didn't want to see this young man turn to stone, and so she filled his bed full of sticks and thorns and twigs and rocks and everything else, so that all night long, every time he would turn over, every time he would move, something would jab him. And every time he would throw something out, there would still be something in there to jab him. And after a fitful night's sleep, he got up long before daylight. And as he was leaving the cabin, as he was leaving the cottage, he ran into this servant girl and he berated her. He said, "How dare you? How could you have such an awful bed? How could you put a guest in such an awful bed?" And he left, and as he left, she said under her breath, "I did it because I love you." Well, that's an interesting story that tells something about how God sometimes works in our lives. You know, the Bible says in Hebrews chapter 12, beginning in verse 5, beginning in verse 5, it says, "My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scourges every son who he receives. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten?" There are times when God has to throw some sticks in our bed. There's some times that God has to throw some stones in our bed and things to make us a little bit uncomfortable, or he has to correct us for something that's come into our lives or something that's happened in our lives. And we don't like it. It's not comfortable. We want that comfortable place in life. We don't want discomfort of God chastening us or challenging us or trying us. We don't want that, but oftentimes it's the only way God can get us to move. It's the only way that God can get us past that place of just comfort where we settle in and do nothing for him, or where we settle in to some area of sin and just continue on in that sin. It's the only way he can get us to move out of that spot. It's the only way he can get us to move forward. And so, yeah, there may be times in your life that chastening comes, that trials come, but don't let that discourage you. In a way, it's just God saying, "I love you." Because if I just let you sit in that place of comfort, you'll just sit down and literally turn to stone. You'll become nothing that's useful. You'll become nothing that accomplishes anything in life. But when we're tried, when we're chastened, when we're moved out of our comfort zone, sometimes that's when we do our greatest things. Think about that today. If you're going through a trial, going through a difficulty, maybe God's trying to keep you from turning to stone. Maybe God's trying to move you forward in some way. Give it some thought. I hope you have a great day today. I hope God fills you full of blessing. And now I got to walk up and turn this thing off. You have a great day. God bless.